All right, and we are ready to get started. Welcome to Rotary, everyone. You know, our Rotarians are going places, and as you know, Rotary opens opportunities. We're so happy to have you today. To get started, I'm going to have Brad Hansen say hello as our greeter. Brad.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to today's meeting. Look forward to a good one. My background is Mount Rainier. My son and I have been doing some overnight backpacking trips for the first time, and we can now say we've done the entire southern section of the Wonderland Trail, which is pretty fun. I thought it was fitting based on our theme for the year. I hope you're all getting a chance to get out and spend some time with those closest to you at a safe distance, and just glad to see you all here.
All right, thank you so very much, Brad. You know, yesterday was a fun day. I spent 4 hours along with Carolyn and Lorna and Kelly out at the Greenway greeting all of you who came to pick up your rosters. Thank you for taking the time to do that. The common comment was, "It's so nice to see you." And it really was really nice to see you. And thank you for those of you who chose to purchase some Rotary wine. Shameless plug right here. We do indeed appreciate your time, and again, just coming out to see one another. It felt really great to see so many masked, smiling faces. So we will do another of those pickup parties at some point in time. So if you didn't get a chance to do that and you are not anxious for your roster quite today, then certainly we'll look forward to rescheduling. So as we head into our meeting, next up is music. David Rogers. David.
Hi, I was looking for music that related in some way to the theme of today's program. I ran into a few dead ends looking for a video that would relate to some Motown and Memphis R&B records that were designed to convince young folks to stay in school. Then I decided, well, I'll look for archival video of Sam Cooke singing Wonderful World. It's not exactly the right message, but it's about school. But I only found audio with still shots, and it was too long for this segment. And then I ran across what you're about to experience, which is just bizarre enough that I couldn't resist. So fasten your seatbelts for a cover of Sam Cooke's Wonderful World as a duet by none other than Twiggy and Brian Ferry. For those who don't know who those are, I guess I think of Twiggy as kind of a Kardashian of the 60s and 70s, became famous as a very distinctive looking model, but actually did have something of a career in music and acting. Brian Ferry is probably best known for Roxy Music in the 70s and 80s. This video is from Twiggy's own TV show in 1974, so I'll apologize for the video quality. But you know, if there's one thing you can say about Rotary is you have experiences here that you will never have anywhere else again. So buckle up for Twiggy and Brian Ferry singing "A Wonderful World."
Don't know much about history, don't know much biology,
don't know much about science books, don't know much about the French I took,
but I do know that I love you.
And I know that if you love me too, what a wonderful world this would be. Don't know much about geography, don't know much trigonometry,
don't know much about algebra, don't know what a slide rule is for,
but I know that 1 and 1 is 2.
And if this one could be with you, what a wonderful world this would be. By being an A student, baby, I can win your love for me. Oh,
don't know much about history, don't know much biology,
don't know much about science books, don't know much about the French I took, but I do know that I love you. bet if they love me too. What a wonderful world this would be. What a wonderful world. What a wonderful world this would be.
Outstanding. That was a fun trip to experience. You know, there are some things that just play well on Zoom. I think it would be really fun to have that in the convention center when we get back together too. Thank you, David. That was awesome. Moving right along, Tim Melhorn for invocation. Tim.
All right, good afternoon, Jennifer and fellow Rotarians, and welcome to our speaker and fellow Rotarian, Mr. Leo Muller. Please join me for the invocation. Infinite Creator God, we join together on a beautiful late summer day in our city and valley, where we're privileged to live and work and actually receive many blessings. We're honored to be Rotarians who give back to Yakima and to our extended community. However, as we all know, we're now in a time where we are perplexed as to how best to overcome the ramifications of COVID-19. So we pray for health and strength. We pray for wisdom, innovation, and for the ability to endure what we are going through without being overcome by fear. We're thankful for the individual and collective blessings we've received and for the way Rotarians and us being able to be Rotarians have actually bettered our lives as well. So now we plead for healing across our land and the world. May better methods of prevention be implemented until we find the definite cures. Please bless our speaker today as well as his ministry to students and their schools. Thank you for hearing our prayers. Amen.
Thank you, Tim. That was lovely. So I'm going to make an announcement. For those of you who are newer members, you may not be familiar with the Yakima Rotary Trust. The Yakima Rotary Trust Board is comprised of members from all three of our local Rotary clubs and does a significant amount of support for our Rotary community projects, including the MLK Junior Park playground build and our upcoming rebuild of what was Wire Park as well. So our Yakima Rotary Trust, you may recall, and I'm going to share my screen so that you can see this image, but you may recall that they host an annual golf tournament that is designed to help raise funds for our Molly Monroe Davis scholarship funds, which the trust administers. Well, this year the golf tournament is coming up on September 17th, and you'll be seeing this coming to your email box soon. But what I really want to tell you about this event is that because of social distancing, we're limited to the number of teams. So there's room for 20 teams. However, 17 are already taken, primarily by whole sponsors. So if you have felt you've missed this opportunity to participate in this event, I would urge you to contact the Yakima Rotary Trust with the email that's listed below here so that you can get on board and get signed up. And Robin Beckett is the executive director of the Yakima Rotary Trust, so her email is robinbeckett@yakimarotarytrust.org. Another thing that they will be doing soon that you'll be getting some information about in your mailbox is they're going to be doing an annual fundraising drive by mail. Again, normally in the past years, they've done an event where we've all come together out either at the Arboretum or in the past, maybe at the Country Club. Due to COVID, of course, unfortunately, that's not going to happen, but please, I encourage you to continue your financial support of the Yakima Rotary Trust. They do so much good in our community and certainly support our club very well. So moving on the agenda, we have Jim Berg to introduce our newest Rotarian. Jim.
Here, can you hear me? Thank you, President Jennifer. It gives me the greatest pleasure today to introduce a new member to our club. You will see on the second screen, screen 2 is Elizabeth Touche. Elizabeth is the newest member, and I get to introduce her. Elizabeth is the byproduct of a woman, her mom, named Cindy, who had such a great love affair for the music, for the movie Sound of Music, which she saw 7 times, that she married the first Austrian that she met, and that's Ulrich. And Cindy and Ulrich had Elizabeth after they had lived in Austria for a couple of years and then moved to moved to the States, and Elizabeth was born here. She has two twin brothers. She is married to a fellow many of you may know, Greg Nelson, who is a lawyer here in town. And they have one child, Wolfgang, who is 10. I wonder where that name Wolfgang came from, other than her Austrian background. She is the in-law of a number of people that you know. Renee Goodman, who is a member of our club, is her sister-in-law. Rod Nelson is her brother-in-law, and Lonnie Kai Swanhart, who was a court commissioner for many years here in Yakima County, is also an in-law. Elizabeth graduated from the University of Washington Law School in 1997. She worked for 4 or 5 years for the Columbia Legal Services, and then was with the Northwest Justice Project from 2004 until 2017, representing primarily low-income individuals and families in civil cases, in issues concerning housing, access to public health, health law, family law, and so on and so forth. Then in 2017, she was appointed to be a court commissioner with the Yakima County Superior Court. She was appointed by the judges, the Superior Court judges. And then in 2020, this past spring, she was appointed by Governor Inslee to be a judge in the Superior Court. She took the position that was previously held by Mike McCarthy, Judge Mike McCarthy, who is no longer alive. She is she has quite extensive background in the community as far as community service. She is was the bar president, the Yakima County Bar Association in 2010. She was a board member of La Casa Hogar. She was a founding board member of Rod's House, serving from 2004 through 2016. She's on the board of the Yakima Volunteer Attorney Service and is a board member of the Northwest Health Law Advocates. Now, as far as her background, or her extracurricular activities, I should say, she is involved into hiking, backpacking, skiing, running, and cycling. Now, those are all things that many of us are involved with, but Elizabeth goes a little bit beyond that, because she is not only a participant, but a finisher of the Ironman triathlon, which some of you know about, but those of you don't, that involves a 112-mile bike ride, a 26-mile run, a full marathon, and then a 2.4-mile swim. She finished the Ironman triathlon 3 times, once in 2005, 2008, and 2012, and her personal best was 11 hours and 38 minutes. And I went on Google to find out, you know, how that stacked up. And apparently they've done some tabulating, and they averaged 41,000 finishers, and the average time was 12 hours and 35 minutes. So she beat that by an hour. And there's one other thing that I tell her, I'm going to point out to you, but maybe this is news to Elizabeth, is there's a fellow named Patrick Lang, who's a German guy, who won the Ironman triathlon in Hawaii in 2017 and 2018. His father is named Wolfgang. So if Elizabeth didn't know that, then there's a connection there. But again, it gives me the greatest pleasure to introduce to you Judge Elizabeth Touche. Thank you.
Welcome, Elizabeth. If you were here in person, you'd see we're all giving you a standing ovation right now. I'm sure everybody doesn't want to show their belly buttons, but that is indeed our warmest welcome to you. Elizabeth, if you want to unmute just to say hello and maybe a sentence or two.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jim, for that sweet introduction. It's always embarrassing to have people talking about you, so thank you. And I'm delighted that you'll have me. I've admired the work of Rotary in our community and bettering the community for years, so I'm just thrilled to be able to join. And the opportunity to have fellowship like this is especially precious during these times. So I'm looking forward to this. Thank you so much.
Well, welcome. Again, if we were in the convention center, I would be handing you the coveted Rotary roster, as well as a plaque for your wall and your red badge that'll turn to a blue badge when you complete Rotary education, and the beautiful Rotary license plate frame to go on your vehicle. So we'll arrange a time perhaps that we can do that somehow socially distanced in the near future. So again, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Moving right along, Mike Hummel as our Sergeant at Arms today. Mike.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hello, everyone. It's good to see everybody. I've got a little PowerPoint. I think Carolyn's going to help me with that. Perfect. Thank you, Carolyn. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I kind of struggled a little bit to come up with a topic for today. The few times that I've done this before, I've tried to pick something that's kind of seasonal, something that's going on in the world. And while we're still in the middle of a pandemic, there's a lot of racial issues and political issues, and I'm not going to touch any of that for Sergeant at Arms. So I said, well, what makes me happy? Of course, I landed on my boys. And I've got two young boys that are obsessed with dinosaurs. And so I thought maybe I'll share a little bit of the knowledge I've learned over the last few years with the club about dinosaurs. So that's what I'm going to do for you guys here today. I don't have anything that is going to penalize and ask you to chip in a couple of bucks like we would do if we're in person. So as you've seen in some of the other meetings, the ask is you can send a few dollars into the office or just add them to your quarterly dues. I'm sure they'd take them happily. But I'll just take you through a few slides and teach you a little bit about what I have learned in the last few years. So next slide, if you could, please, Carolyn. All right, the age of dinosaurs. The age of dinosaurs is known as the Mesozoic era. It included 3 consecutive geological time periods, the Triassic, the Jurassic, and the Cretaceous periods. All of them combined, the entire Mesozoic era lasted 165 million years. Now, different dinosaur species lived during each one of these 3 periods. This is something I didn't know, and I've learned in the last few years. For example, a Jurassic dinosaur, the Stegosaurus, something we're all familiar with, we've heard of that dinosaur. It had been extinct for 80 million years before the Cretaceous period dinosaur, the Tyrannosaurus, ever came about. And you'll see that it says, in fact, the time separating a Stegosaurus and a Tyrannosaurus is greater than the time separating the Tyrannosaurus from us. I found that pretty remarkable. If you think about it, human beings, Homo sapiens, we've only been around for 100,000 years, roughly in the modern form. So when you think in a geological sense, we've been around for a blink of an eye. 165 million years is pretty insane how long these animals really roamed our planet and called it their home. Next slide, please. Obviously, dinosaurs are big, but their range is significant, and a lot of people don't know that. The dinosaurs range from the massive Argentinosaurus to the tiny Oculudoventys. Excuse my pronunciation there, some of these are a little hard. The Argentinosaurus is the largest dinosaur ever to live, weighing 55 to 106 tons and measured 98 to 130 feet in length. I had never heard of either of these dinosaurs until my now 4-year-old, then 3-year-old decided to start teaching me this stuff, and he can actually pronounce a lot of these better than I can. The Oculudoventys is a small bird-like creature weighing less than 1/10 of an ounce and is just over 1/2 of an inch long. The Oculudoventys was just recently discovered as straight out of Jurassic Park. They actually found his skull in a piece of amber, just like you saw in the movie, and it was a complete and total skull preserved in there. And that was just in like February, March of 2020 that was just discovered. So kind of a new one. Next slide, please. The origin of birds. A lot of folks don't know that birds are descended down from dinosaurs. So the present scientific consensus is that birds have descended from a group of 2-legged dinosaurs known as theropods. Their members include the Tyrannosaurus, the Spinosaurus, and the Gigantorosaurus, all of which were massive, vicious carnivores, and over time have become what we know as birds today. The largest modern theropod today is the common ostrich. The image up on the left there, that's a Tyrannosaurus, and we all grew up with this image more what you would see in the Jurassic Park movies, right? It was hairless, and while it still had little arms, they were a little bit bigger than this. The consensus now is that they actually probably had hair, possibly even had some feathers on them here and there, and relates more to what we might see a bird looking like. The one on the right is a Spinosaurus. The sail is distinctive of look, the sail on its back there. And I have to give a plug to my son, Max. That is his favorite dinosaur. And I hear about the Spinosaurus all the time. Next slide, please. Speaking of birds, pterodactyl is a common term used for winged reptiles. However, this name is incorrect, and they are actually called pterosaurs. While pterosaurs lived among dinosaurs and became extinct around the same time, they were not actually dinosaurs, but rather flying reptiles. Something else I have learned is that pterodactyl, a word we're all familiar with, that's not actually a thing. It's not a dinosaur, and it's also not a flying reptile. There is a pterosaur that is called a pterodactylus, which is close to the image that we would have in our minds, but a pterodactyl is not a thing, and I have no idea how that made it into the common dino knowledge, if you will. The largest pterosaur of all time and the largest flying animal of all time is the Quetzalcoatlus. The Quetzalcoatlus was roughly the size of a Cessna 172 aircraft. It had a wingspan ranging from 33 to 52 feet, and it weighed 440 to 550 pounds. You can imagine that beast flying over the top of you. They didn't really flap their wings a whole lot. They would flap their wings to get off the ground, and then once they were airborne, they flew very similar to an airplane today would be. They would bend their wings for lift and drag, and they would just cruise through the air that way. Next slide, please. Hollywood lies. Thanks to the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World movies, our image of some dinosaurs, including the velociraptor, is extremely inaccurate. Moviegoers saw an image of an animal about the size of an adult male with lizard-like outer skin. On the top left there, that is Blue from the Jurassic World series. And if you've ever seen in those movies, he is as tall as the main characters and looks just like that with the lizard-like skin. In actuality, a velociraptor is about 6 feet long from nose to tail, but only about 2 feet tall and only weighs about 30 pounds. They're small pack hunters. We also now know that they were covered in hair and feathers, and no surprise, velociraptors are also theropods, where we now have our modern birds. And they actually did touch on that in the original Jurassic Park, that velociraptors are the ancestors of birds, but they just portrayed them incorrectly in how they looked. I'm not sure why. Next slide, please. A dino named Sue. See what I did there? Any Johnny Cash fans? Yeah, all right. The most complete Tyrannosaurus skeleton ever found is named Sue. To date, scientists have discovered 250 of the approximately 380 total bones in a T-Rex. Even more impressive is that Sue has a complete bone volume of 90%, meaning that most of the missing bones are smaller ones. Of the larger dinosaurs, there is not a complete fossil skeleton out there. There are some smaller dinosaurs that were able to kind of keep that fossil in its same area where the scientists could find it later. But these larger dinosaurs, over the millions of years, it's all kind of moved around, been eaten by scavengers, whatever it might be. I believe Sue is on display at the Natural History Museum in either DC or New York, but it does tour. It spent a little time in Seattle when I was living over there. So keep an eye out for it. It's a pretty fascinating thing. I have seen it in person. It's pretty remarkable. Next slide, please. A sudden end. Dinosaurs roamed the earth for 160 million years until their sudden demise some 65.5 million years ago in an event known as the Cretaceous Tertiary or KT extinction event. For many years, scientists believed dinosaur extinction was caused by climate and geological changes. However, in the 1980s, father and son scientists Luis and Walter Alvarez discovered a layer of iridium in the earth. Iridium is only found in abundance in space, and the layer found corresponds to the precise time that the dinosaurs died off. This evidence suggested that a comet, asteroid, or meteor impact may have caused the extinction. Then in the 1990s, scientists found a massive crater at the tip of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula that dated to the exact period in question. Now, this theory is widely accepted as the most likely cause of dinosaur extinction. I found those dates kind of fascinating just from the standpoint of dinosaurs roamed for so long. The first fossils were found in the early 1900s, so it took about 80 years for somebody to kind of say, yeah, I think that this is how they died. And then it wasn't until the 90s, just 30 years ago, that it really kind of became cemented as the accepted scientific conclusion for how dinosaurs died. So pretty remarkable. I have one more slide, if you'll share that one for me, please, Carolyn. There's the inspiration for today's presentation. That is my son, Max. This picture's about a year old now. It was taken when I was putting together some advertising. This is actually at Single Hill Brewery, and those are the dinos. But Max is genuinely in love with dinosaurs. He'll ask to go to Single Hill pre-COVID just to play with these dinosaurs. So I thought it was only fitting to kind of give him a shout out at the end of this. What's even scarier is he could tell you what every single one of those dinosaurs is on the table there, and he wouldn't even skip a beat, and he would pronounce them perfect. So the kid is truly a dinosaur fanatic. But this is a little tribute to Max, and thank you everybody for your time. And if I said anything that you didn't know, send a couple of bucks into the Rotary office, please.
Awesome, Mike. Thank you so very much. And please give our thank you to Max as well for the education today. Next up is our program going to be introduced by Dana Eliason. Dana.
Thank you, President Jennifer, fellow Rotarians, and welcome guests. Today it's my pleasure to introduce to you Leo Mueller, who is the Executive Director of the Choices Education Group. Choices is a nonprofit organization that's headquartered in Seattle that provides unique and interactive workshops for middle and high school age students to really help them understand the positive power of, or the power rather, of making a positive decisions in their lives. And as you know, this week throughout the Valley, our students are starting a brand new school year completely online. And now more than ever, our kids and especially our teens really need the skills to make positive decisions that will increase their life opportunities. So as I mentioned, Choices is an education group, nonprofit. They're also a provider of these programs nationally. They're distributed through stay-in-school workshops for middle and high school age students, as I mentioned. And Leo has 34 years of nonprofit volunteerism programs and cause marketing relationships. He's been developing and executing business education partnerships and worked with Fortune 500 companies to launch these. He's worked with chambers of commerce, service clubs, and many school systems. He's been with the Choices Education Group since its inception in 1985, and he served as its executive director since 1996. Leo actually introduced Choices to Heritage University in the spring of 2019. And with the help of Heritage staff and student volunteers, we launched a pilot program that involved Zilla, Toppenish, and Sela school districts. And Leo, I think, will touch a little bit more on that in his presentation. Leo's also a member of the Rotary Club of Lake Union in Seattle, where he served as the youth service chair, and most recently, he was the club president for the 2019-2020 Rotary year. He's been a competitor and a coach for the social venture partners at fast pitch competitions. He's a coach and judge for the Seattle Pacific University Social Venture Plan competition and a national conference speaker and panelist. He's also served as a member of the Nordstrom Scholarship Selection Committee and has been on the board of the Children's Music Foundation, the Washington Association of Partners in Education, the National Alliance of Business Task Force on Teacher Quality, and the Washington State Partnership for Family Involvement in Education, and the Alliance for Education School to Work Community Planning Groups. Leo was born in the Netherlands and immigrated to the United States as a child. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Business from Seattle Pacific University. He lives in Seattle and is married to a writer and teacher, Marlene Mueller. I believe she's a third grade teacher. We have 2 adult children, and Leo is an amateur blues, rock, folk musician, and I heard he's quite good, and a sometime racket player, former snow skier, and a former barefoot water skier. And he claims that he's a slowing runner, jogger, walker. And it's my pleasure today to introduce you to Leo Mueller. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana, for that nice introduction. I didn't know you were going to say anything about barefoot water skiing. Believe you me, I don't do it anymore. But that's very kind. And by the way, my name is actually pronounced Mueller instead of Mueller. But you know, I've been called so many things that you were fine. That's just great. It's because it's the Dutch pronunciation. But thank you all very much. Greetings from Seattle. I'm delighted to be here and share with you today about the work that we do at Choices Education Group. I also wanted to just give a shout out to Rotarians everywhere, including your club, for the great news out of Africa that polio has been eliminated in that country or in that whole region. And I think it's just terrific. And kudos to Rotarians everywhere that have been doing that work. And I imagine you all have been a part of that as well. So that's wonderful news. I'm going to share my screen. Have I already been granted permission for that? Does somebody know? Yes? All right. I think it looks like Carolyn's the person on all this. So let me see if I can pull up the presentation I want to do here for you. Can you all see that okay? Great. Okay. And I'm going to minimize myself here so I don't have to look at myself while I'm talking. All right. Well, the mission of Choices is to empower teens to make positive educational choices that will increase their career and life opportunities. And we're honored and blessed to have the support of a lot of business partners. These are just a few of them, but some of our primary ones. And we really appreciate some of them provide funding support, some provide volunteers, some provide board members, or even in-kind giving to our organization. And those are all deeply appreciated. And some give all of those things. So that's just tremendous. But I wanted to share with you a serious problem in our country. And you may know about this. It's called the dropout epidemic. I'm not really in love with the term dropout because some kids leave school for other reasons. But the shocking news is that 7,000 teens quit school every school day on average in this country. And it is a shocking statistic. Every time I say it, it's also devastating for them. They're going to earn $491,000 less than a high school graduate over the course of their lifetime, and that's not to mention the difference between them and a college graduate. And there's also a strong correlation between kids who leave school early and poverty, homelessness, and even prison, because if they're not able to make ends meet with a job, they might resort to other means that don't always end well. But the real astronomical thing here, and not to say that how devastating it is for them isn't important, but who do you think is providing all the health care and welfare and prison costs that we incur in providing services to these folks? Well, we do, right? Through our taxes, both personal and business taxes. And therefore, our nation is incurring every school day $2 billion in future costs every day that we let this continue. It's just astounding. And what that means is it's not just their problem when they leave school early, it's ours as well. So at Choices, what we've been doing is bringing to kids a stay-in-school message delivered by positive adult role models. This is Mark from Seattle. He owns and rents properties around the area, which gives him some flexibility in his daytime schedules and allows him to go out and deliver our program in the school. So the Choices program is delivered in two 45-minute sessions, one on one day, one on the next. The first day focus is on making the case for staying in school, that pursuing education versus leaving school early can make a huge difference in your life. Now, we don't do this with a lecture or a PowerPoint or a video or a workbook. We actually have people come right into the classroom like Mark is here and deliver this program in person. And he's having kids like this young man come up all the time to participate in activities so that they discover the message for themselves. And that adds a lot of credibility to the message rather than having it just told to them by someone they've never seen before. The second day, we move on to what we call Skills for Success. This is also a 45-minute session the next day. And in the Skills for Success, we focus on things like time management, decision-making, and goal setting, teaching them about self-discipline. These are all skills that can help them right now while they're in school and can also help them down the road in their lives. We actually start the day with a mock job interview where the student interviews the presenter, which is a great way to do it. We flip the table and again put the kids in a position of power so that they can ask these questions, and then they all decide as a class what you did well and not, and they have a lot of fun with that, because what teenager doesn't love telling adults what they did wrong, right? And then, of course, at the end, they decide whether or not they're going to hire you. So this is a great second session to kind of nail this down. And by the way, at the end of the first session, we invite kids to make their personal commitment that they will graduate from high school.
in a little half sheet of paper that they sign and turn in. So now it's time for a demo. If I was there in person, I would have my little bag of tricks with me, and I would show you the materials and take you through some of these exercises. But since we have the pleasure of meeting on Zoom, I'm going to give you a virtual demonstration. I'll show you some pictures of some of our other presenters in the classroom with kids and take you through some activities. So this is Mary. She's a nurse at the University of Washington Medical Center. And she's taking these kids through what we call money management. So the tall fellow on the left has decided that, he's pretending, of course, decided that he's going to leave school early. And so he goes out and tries to find a job that he can get without a high school diploma. As you can imagine, it doesn't pay very much. So then, his whole idea in this pretend scenario that he's going to go out and get his own place and have parties, have his friends over, and just kind of kick it and have a good time. So he gets his first paycheck. Well, let's say he gets his whole month of paycheck, and it isn't very much money, right? And so then he has to start paying his bills. So, of course, the first bill is going to be the taxes that come out of his money before he even gets it. And then he's got to pay for rent, and he's got to pay for utilities and groceries and transportation. And pretty soon he realizes that he's out of money, and he still isn't out of bills. So all of a sudden the reality hits hard. I've got more bills to pay, and I don't have the money to pay it. It's the first month of the first year of possibly a 50 to 55 year working life. This doesn't look good. And so, as you can see, the kids are having a lot of fun with the presenters and the materials, but they're learning a very serious lesson about what would happen if they tried to get a job without graduating from high school or beyond. This next activity is called School Decisions and Career Consequences. It's led by a gentleman here. His name is Brad Tilden, and you may have heard of him. He is the CEO of Alaska Airlines. And he is a big believer in our program, loves to go out and talk to kids in the schools. No cameras, no lights, he's just there talking with them like you and me. And he's been a great supporter of our work in this way. So what he's doing here is called School Decisions and Career Consequences. So these three girls, as you can see, they have cards here, the green one and the blue one. And over here on the right, the green one says high school dropout. Again, we'll be changing that to leave school early. High school graduate, and then education beyond high school. And then Brad has in his hands here some cards, and those are the cards at the bottom here. Now, I'm sorry that the way the photo is, you can't see it, but the first card says veterinarian, the second says food server, and the third one says professional basketball player. So we actually go through 6 different jobs, and we basically pose the question, if all other things were equal and you guys had these 3 different levels of education, which jobs would you qualify for? And by the end of the exercise, the girl with the green card that left school early, she ends up with 2 jobs, the one in the middle with 4 jobs, and the one on the left here with all jobs, all 6 jobs, because with that higher level of education, she's going to have a lot more opportunities available to her. The last activity I want to share with you is called the Choices Challenge. This is led by Bob. He's a banker in town in Seattle here, and he is actually the longest tenured Choices presenter outside of me, who helped start the organization back in 1984. Great guy, loves working with kids, and they can really relate to him. He started as a child and has overcome that, and he's a great role model for the kids. So he takes them through this activity called the Choices Challenge. It's a decision-making tool where they can go through a variety of scenarios here. So this first scenario with the red cards, this young man is participating here on the left, and the situation is that he's pretending he's got a test tomorrow, but his buddies are all going over to his friend's house to play video games tonight, and so what should he do? Should he stay home and study, or should he go on to his buddy's house and play video games with the gang? There's a third option that we call the wild card. I don't know about you, but when I was in 8th grade and much of my teenage years, I was a real professional at making thoughtless choices. I never thought about it. I just chose something, right? So random choices. The wild card is when a student makes a random choice in their lives, and then they just find out what the results are. So depending on what option they choose, they get the card for that, they flip it over, and they find out what happened as a result of that in that particular scenario, and then it shares with them how many opportunities they gained or lost. So this game is not a right or wrong, bad or good, but it's explaining to kids how by making thoughtful choices, they can create opportunities in their life. And this is where I usually ask kids, how many of you would like to have lots of choices in your life? And they all raise their hands, and then I say, how many of you would like to have no choices in your life? Yeah, it's a little different, isn't it? So I want to share, those are 3 activities in the workshop. The first 2 are from day 1 content, as I mentioned, and the last one from day 2 content. I want to share a little bit of impact with you on our workshop. We did some studies of measuring kids' engagement in school, and we found that choices was coincident with increases in positive engagement and decreases in negative engagement and non-engagement. So we saw about an 18% positive swing engagement that was coincident with choices. Now I say coincident because the next level we wanted to get to is what about are the changes in their engagement correlated to choices? So we did a control group study where we had the same teacher in the same school, same kids. So all the demographics were there, and we eliminated a lot of other variables. And then we had 3 of the classes participate in choices during the study period, and 3 other classes that did not participate until after the study period was done. And what we found was all the kids increased their engagement, but those who had choices between the pre and post analysis increased their engagement 47% more than those who didn't. So it became very obvious to us that choices is making positive impacts on kids and that it can be directly correlated to the program. Choices impacts teens. Like this girl here who's holding up her dog tag. We give every kid a dog tag. It's got our logo on it and it says, I am who I choose to become. Do you see a theme here about how we're empowering kids and showing them that they have power? And here's a quote, thanks to you, I know how to take care of my life. I just love hearing stuff like that. It keeps me going in this work. So Dana mentioned that Heritage University did a pilot program for choices in the spring of 2019. 3 schools, Toppenish, Sela, and Zilla, all middle schools. You can see the dates here. Altogether, we served 311 students in 17 classes. You see the age distribution and the gender, and then the next slide here is the race distribution. As you might expect, mostly Latinx and white, and then from there, but a lot of different ethnicities represented here. So that's very interesting. A couple of kids did not respond as well. And so this is a lot of text on this one slide here, but I wanted to show you what happened. So first of all, on the questions, we asked questions like, did choices matter? Was it interesting, understandable, believable? And then we asked, how important is high school graduation for your future? And how important is education beyond high school to you? And then we asked, will you be paying more attention to your education now that you've been through choices? And how effective was the choices presenter? Finally, the second to last item here, how useful was the choices content? We actually have collapsed into one question here, 12 questions we asked of the kids about each of the 12 activities that we do during choices to see how they rated it. So how did they rate it? Over here it says percent positive at the top of the numbers. And you'll see in the footnote that means they agreed or strongly agreed. We had a 4-point scale, and these kids answered a 3 or 4 on that 4-point scale. So our national statistics over on the right, I want to point to you, these are based on over 5,000 workshop surveys in 42 schools during the 16-17 academic year. Pretty good numbers, 80% or higher, with one exception at 79%, up into the mid-90s. And our overall last item here, composite mean score for all the 20 data points, these 8 questions plus the 12 about content, we have an 85% positive rating. We're quite proud of that. 85% of kids think this program is good and it's helping them and it's interesting and believable and they're going to change their behavior as a result of it. That's impressive. But what's even more impressive is look at the results from Heritage. The program that you all did as a pilot program yielded these results. All of them except one in the 90s and some of them up near 100%. 98%, how important is graduation, and our composite mean score of 93. This tells me that your students really resonated with this program, that your community can really benefit from hearing this message. And that was really encouraging to us then, and it's very exciting for me. I couldn't wait to get to this slide to share this information with you. Of course, I also want to explain why we're talking to a Rotary Club about this. Well, obviously, Choices fits with the Rotary motto, service above self. It meets the Rotary four-way test. It creates meaningful local area service projects that you can do, and it builds deep ties with the local community because you're out there serving schools, right? Here's our reach with Rotary. Now, we've worked with Rotary since before the year 2000, but since the year 2000, the last 20 years, 102 Rotary clubs in 22 states have delivered choices to, wait for it, 268,000 teens. I got to tell you, I was so impressed with Rotary committing like this to Choices and learning about the other work they do when I came to speak at clubs. That's why I joined Rotary. I joined about 8 years ago, and as Dana said, I just completed my year as president, and it was a wonderful experience, and it was an honor to serve. In some Rotary club and Rotary districts, they have worked to bring additional clubs in and have done this on a larger scale. So this is Rotary District 6110 at the intersection of Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. 20 Rotary clubs in 3 of those 4 states deliver choices to 27,910 students and counting. In Rotary District 6200 in southern Louisiana, where they're experiencing the devastation of Hurricane Laura right now, boy, are they in my thoughts. 18 Rotary clubs in 11 parishes there have delivered choices to 17,380 students and counting also. So we are so appreciative of Rotary and its commitment to the Choices program and our long history together. I also want to tell you about Rotaract, and what we have done in some locations is gotten Rotaract clubs involved as well. They co-present with Rotarians, so therefore the Rotarian can mentor that Rotaractor. The Rotaractor gets to network with that Rotarian. Think about a college student getting ready to step out into the world and the opportunity to network with people in the community like this, and also, of course, with the schools. Both the Rotarian and the Rotaractor are serving local teens, and of course, more volunteers, means more teens served. So there's an exponential opportunity there to make a big impact. This slide doesn't look like it's about Rotary, but you'll see what I'm getting to here. How Choices supports your community. It serves all teens in your community over time. Excuse me, I grab a little quick drink here. Because every student at some point in their school career is going to participate in the 8th grade. So as they all come through the 8th grade, they get choices. And over time, you're literally serving all the teens in your communities as you deliver this program. The program also models community service for teens and young adults. So not only the kids that are getting the program see this, but the young adults who are co-presenting with you from college are also able to see community service modeled as they experience it and do it themselves. I remember a student in an 8th grade in Seattle here coming up to me after Choices and saying to me, hey, when I get to college, could I become a Choices presenter? So she saw the impact of this program for her as an 8th grader. She also saw the impact of us presenting Choices in a school and giving back to the community to the point where she wanted to do that as well when she was old enough to do so. I think it's a Rotary statement, but I love this statement here, this quote, by serving youth, we teach them to serve. Now, you might be asking, how are we addressing COVID? Obviously, that's a reality. So as soon as we realized that schools were going to be opening with online instruction this fall, we began exploring virtual delivery of choices in schools. So we've just completed an ideation and prototyping project with JP Morgan Chase. You'll see over here on the left in the photo and below. These were college summer intern volunteers And Chase did this all over the country, in fact, all over the world for a bunch of different nonprofits. And we were fortunate to be one of them. We actually had close to 100 college interns broken up into 14 teams working just on choices. And it was just fascinating to see the ideas that they came up with. These are kids that are only about 6 or 7 years older than the 8th graders we serve. So they know what those kids are going to like. And they came up with all these really cool tools that we're now starting to build out. But of course, we need to do this in a way that's readily accessible for volunteers and for teachers and students. So we are going to use this simple, this is called, to me, this is like a simple, elegant solution. Delivering choices via Zoom, just like I'm speaking to you as a guest speaker today in this meeting. Our choices presenters will go in co-presenting, delivering choices by being guest speakers in a Zoom meeting that the teacher is holding with his or her students. And for those of you familiar with online instruction modalities, there's usually a learning management system that's involved, and then within that, the teachers are able to conduct online instruction with meetings on Zoom or Microsoft Teams or some of the others that are out there, the online meeting platforms. And so our presenters will be able to deliver choices from their home or office, saving them drive time back and forth, which could actually make our volunteers more available to do more of these workshops. While you're in this Zoom meeting with the kids, you'll be taking them through real-time interactions right in their classrooms, so to speak. And so that makes it a really powerful experience. We don't have to go out and find kids or find teachers. We will just go to the schools that are interested in this program, and we can just come right in, and it solves the technology access challenge on their side. So it's really exciting. We'll be engaging them in online games and activities within the Zoom meeting. Now, these will be like mini games, 2 to 3 minutes in length, or activities that will happen in the context of the workshop. So they're not going to be running off playing video games for the rest of the day, we hope. We hope they'll be thinking about what they learned in this workshop. Now, how Choices works, a quick primer on that overall. First of all, everybody's curious about what this program costs. It's actually less than $5 per teen served. So for less than the cost of one of those fancy coffees and a scone, you can actually serve a kid. And it's just so powerful to be able to do it at such a low cost. We're a tiny little nonprofit organization. All of our work is done by the volunteers from organizations like Rotary and Chambers of Commerce and businesses and nonprofits that get their own members and employees and board members and community volunteers involved. So our delivery partners license this program. They get the materials and training. They then recruit volunteer presenters. They invite schools to host them in the classrooms, and then they deliver the workshop and tally the results. Currently, we're serving about 18,000 teens per school year, in 39 sites in 16 locations. So you're invited to participate. You're invited to serve the teens in your community, and we're of course hoping to look. And by the way, I wanted to acknowledge that David Wise is on the meeting with us today, and David and I worked closely together to help put on that pilot at Heritage University. Thanks for being a part of this today, David. Glad to see you there. And so your club can adopt schools or districts up and down the valley that you want to serve, probably starting with schools in Yakima. You can personally, all of you as Rotarians, become Choices presenters. So think about you and your co-members doing this, but think also about your co-workers at work, your buddies that you play golf or tennis or jog or run with or hike with. Your family members that are adults and might be able to share in this. There's all kinds of folks that you can get involved with this. And of course, as I mentioned, you can co-present with your Rotaractors. And you can also involve others in your Rotary district, like the 2 districts I mentioned earlier. Not only getting those clubs involved to help with volunteers and funding, but we've had the great experience of doing district matching grants for Choices, where imagine this for a moment, that you committed $5,000 for the Choices program. You got 5 other clubs to each commit $1,000. You submit that $10,000 amount to your Rotary district grant for a matching grant. They match the full amount, bringing up to $20,000. And then if you do this like we do in District 5030 in the Seattle area, they double matched the gift, the other Rotary clubs that partnered with us, giving additional $5,000 there. So from an initial investment from your club of $5,000, you've raised $25,000 for this program. So the cost of choices of $5 per student served for your club now has been distilled down to just $1 per student served. That's Rotary math. I love it, and be happy to work with you all to explore that. We did a project like that in the Seattle area and had that same type of leverage from the Rotary District Matching Grant. So let's get started. Determine the schools you want to serve and the number of classes. You can calculate how many volunteers you'll need. You license choices for that class count. We'll then provide the training, materials, and support, and you will start changing lives. Now, I've got about 3 minutes left, I think, for Q&A, so I'd be happy to entertain questions. I've got my contact information here. One of the things we always like to say is turn a teen around today. I know we're not going to do that today, but maybe today is the day it starts so that we can start making that happen for kids in your communities. So I'll open the floor up for questions for the remaining 3 minutes or so that we have.
I have a question then, if nobody else wants to ask.
Sure.
How long does the presentation take? And how do the schools
Accommodate it?
adapt to that? Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually designed the workshop to happen within the context of school class periods. And so each session is 45 minutes, the first one on the first day and the second one on the second day. So that there's, and most class periods in middle schools are anywhere from, well, the shortest we've heard is 48 minutes up to 55 minutes. And then, of course, sometimes they have block scheduling where they have an hour and a half session and you would just take up 45 minutes of that session. So it's a total of 90 minutes. We call it our precious 90 minutes with kids. And it's that's how it's delivered in those two 45-minute sessions during a class period. Any other questions?
Leo, there's some comments I'm seeing that are about the similarities to the Junior Achievement Program. Can you maybe touch on that a little bit?
Sure. We think Junior Achievement is an outstanding organization and program. They've changed many lives, and it's really fantastic. Their tendency is to focus more on the financial benefits and how you can get a job and the businesses that you could do. They have their great business parks where they take kids through that kind of thing. I would say that Choices and Junior Achievement are actually quite complementary, and that Choices would be a program you might do first because we kind of step back and look at kids' whole lives and talk to them about how the choices they're making now are going to impact them in a lot of different ways, not just in how much money they might make or the work that they might do. And so one natural progression would be to take kids through the two 45-minute sessions of choices and then bring them into a Junior Achievement Program so that they could explore that element of making choices in their lives.
Another organization that has an investment in this dropout process is United Way, in preventing intergenerational poverty problems. And so do you have working relationships with United Way?
We do have connections with United Way in King County in Washington, or in Seattle here, but we, looks like I'm supposed to admit someone to a waiting room here. There we go.
Got it.
I don't know what that was, but anyway, we are aware of their programs, and we have used United Way to get volunteers through their volunteer portal. but we have not done specific co-programming together. There's also an organization called Communities in Schools that does similar work. And Boys and Girls Clubs, of course, have a very similar objective. We have actually, on some occasions, done choices at Boys and Girls Clubs for kids during after-school hours.
I have a question about how do you accomplish training of presenters now, and how long of time is invested in training?
Great question. We actually do our training of volunteers online as well. So when an organization like yours decides to license the program, we will provide to the person who's going to be the point person for your club the information that they need so that they can train the volunteers. And it's an online portal called BrainShark, where volunteers can go one by one on their own there, or you can bring people together into a meeting room with internet big screen and watch it together as a group, and you can pause it and talk about it together and go through each of the 12 activities and so on. So it takes about 2 hours to go through the whole thing, a little bit over 2 hours, and that includes introducing the choices overall, explaining what the materials look like, and then in each activity we explain it, and then you get to watch an actual presenter in a real live classroom taking kids through that activity.
Thank you.
Past President Leo, I would encourage, if you have time, to stay on past our formal adjournment to take
Sure.
any questions. That would be really wonderful.
I would be happy to do that, and I'll stop sharing my screen here so we can see each other again. There we go.
Well, thank you again so very much for speaking to us about this program today. I would encourage any Rotarians who are interested in learning more, certainly reach out to past President Leo as well. To thank you for speaking today, we are going to make a donation to Rotary Charities in your name, and that supports our academic and vocational scholarship programs, which is certainly right up your alley. So thank you again for your time.
That's wonderful. Thank you, and thank you all very much for listening to me.
Absolutely. So we're going to wrap up with our special segment called Rotarians Are Going Places with Sherry Green. Sherry.
Hey everyone, can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, President Leisner, for giving me the opportunity to share in this experience. I have a couple of things that I were inspired by today, and one of them was actually your theme of Rotarians Are Going Places. And so to talk about that for a minute, I need to backtrack about 6 years when I was fortunate enough to join Rotary. That whole next year and a half was a really big time frame for me. I was busy with Rotary, my workload had doubled. I was in a new relationship with a wonderful man who's now my husband. I'm very fortunate. And I was building a house. So during that time when I was building my house, one of my friends gave me a wonderful book, which I didn't realize I would ever share again with anyone else, but it was this book, Oh, the Places We Will Go. And this book, I am sure, is about Rotarians, because it's all about the good things that this little Rotarian right here is doing. And there's a time in here when he is going through some tumultuous stuff, and I'm pretty sure that those are the little COVID monsters probably. But in the long run, he finds ways to make it through and still accomplish great things. So it kind of reminded me of what we're all going through now. Life is different, but Rotarians are wonderful. So I just wanted to talk for a quick minute about something I've been involved in, another little bit of an inspiration, if Carolyn wants to share the slide that I sent in. So I am a part of an organization through real estate called the Council of Residential Specialists, and it is the largest continuing education real estate group in the nation. And I've been really fortunate to be a part of them for 10 years. I've served in various seats on the board. And the last few years, I am in charge of what's called Chapter with a Heart. And that is a group of people in this organization. We do things throughout the state of Washington, throughout our calendar year, which goes from October through the following September. So this year we have chosen Northwest Harvest And like I said, we are in the pre-planning phases. We actually start in October, and I have a team of people across the state that I'm working with, and we're planning events across the whole state. And I really haven't left once. I feel like I've been all over the state, but it's really right from Zoom. And we have a lot of great events coming up. The Yakima event will probably be likely after the first of the year, because I want to let Yakima get through Operation Harvest and support all of that. And then we'll move on to doing something to a food drive and a monetary drive, and we'll do some volunteering once they open up the opportunities for volunteers to go in again. So the point in this was really just to let all the Rotarians know that I've heard great things that everybody is doing, and no matter what we're going through in life and with our world, all of you can still do great things. So find your passion and just dive right in. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Sherry, very much for taking the time to do our Rotarians Are Going Places segment. It's always an uplifting part of the meeting, to be sure. So coming up next week, our program is going to be Justice Raquel Montoya Lewis, who is a Native American Supreme Court Justice. Following that, we'll be celebrating National Hispanic Heritage Month, and the week following that, Robert Franklin will be talking about the history of pre-Manhattan Project town sites. So our Rotarians are going places, even if it is via Zoom. So with that, I'm going to officially adjourn. And as I said before, anyone with additional questions for our speaker, please stay on the line and certainly feel free. So with that, we're adjourned. Thank you all, Rotarians.